God's Day, and welcome to my special guest interview for the month of August 2024, Mrs. Teena Myers. I know I announced in my episode on last week that I'd be speaking with another person, Jennifer Cotney, my dear friend, another of my dear friends, but she was unable to do the interview with me now. So she suggested that I ask the president of the Southern Christian Writers Group that I just joined on last Saturday after their meeting. My first time attending, mind you. And I was really intimidated. So I told Jennifer, I said, well, can you reach out to her first? And then she texted her and asked her if she'd mind filling me in and being my guest. And then I followed up with the text. And she said a resounding yes. So here we are today with Miss Teena.
And
Say hello, Teena.
Yes, thank you. I didn't know if you were finished speaking or not. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm so glad that you joined us last Saturday. We always welcome new members, and I am your servant.
That is wonderful to hear, because a lot of people say that, but it don't always feel that way.
Well, I hope I never.
It's like their mouths and their actions don't match up. It's like, okay, either you do or you don't.
Yeah.
Now you can't do both at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I hope my actions prove to you that God set me there to serve you.
Yes, you were a godsend. Yep, and I graciously, I am so, I'm beyond words. I'm so grateful that you said yes, because you could have had other stuff to do, and which would have been understandable, because I just asked you last night and stayed up late trying to get the questions together for our interview today. So I appreciate all of your sacrifice for being a willing vessel to be here on my podcast.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
So thank you. Okay, let me pray us in. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this month's podcast with my friend Teena. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allowing it to fall on fertile ground. We know that it is your desire that no one live in darkness and perish. We also know that you desire that no one live in darkness, but instead come into the kingdom through knowledge that you allow the Holy Spirit to release on us as they listen to the words spoken into this interview. Allow them to see that in spite of the problems and troubles that we often face in this world, there is no reason to stop believing, praying, and casting all our cares on you. You love on those who are blinded in any way that they might see things as they really are in this world. Give us the right words to say to capture people's attention, and I pray that they are led to share this interview with whoever they believe could also benefit from something they learned or was amused by, aka edutained, to be both educated and entertained. These are our prayers through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. So, Teena, how are you really doing today?
Today, I am living my best life. I think most of my growing up was a constant struggle. And even after I became a Christian, there were struggles. And I began to wonder, well, is this all there is to life? Am I living or am I just existing? And I tell you, when I hit my 60s, I started living my best life.
Oh, wow. Well, I can't wait to hit my 60s. I'm still in my 50s. I was a few years ago.
Oh, it gets better and better.
I'm looking forward to it. That's what I hear. Yep. So I've been a customer of the gospel shop for some years now. And I recall, I don't remember exactly when, but I stopped and I bought gifts and gifts and Bible covers and a few other miscellaneous items. And as a matter of fact, I saw information about your group, Southern Christian Writers, by being in that store. And I saw your flyers and brochures in the store several years ago. And it was brought up again by our mutual friend, Jennifer Cotney, who I met at Life Songs on last year, and she was originally supposed to be my August special guest. But she was also a member and a writer in your Well Now Our group. And
Yes.
she originally mentioned to me to ask you, and I couldn't. And then I stopped and I hesitated because I was like, you know what? Okay, Teena has a lot going on right now. So she's offering the leader of the new group that I joined, the Christian Writers Association. So I was like, okay, what do I have to lose? The worst she could say is no, she's busy. So I followed up with the text, and the rest was history. You said you were available and could do it, and here we are today. Thanks be to God.
You know, that that attitude, what do I have to lose, has gotten me some great interviews. I was at a writers conference, and Babby Mason was sitting by herself, just looking at some material. And I said, well, what have I got to lose? I'll just go ask her if she'll be a speaker. And I sat down, and she was the friendliest, warmest person, and so happy to be a speaker for Southern Christian writers.
You just never know if you don't try. If you don't put yourself out there,
yes,
you'll never know what could be. Yeah. So, and you're the president of the group, right?
Yes, I started the group. At really God's direction. What happened was right at I wrote for a long time, I wrote the Faith, Beliefs, and Spirituality blog for what at that time was the Times-Picayune. It's the Advocate now. And the North Shore Bureau Chief had offered a writing group I was attending on the North Shore the opportunity to contribute to a blog called Faith, Beliefs, and Spirituality that they were starting. Well, a few of us did, I did, and a few others, but then everybody stopped contributing but me. So I just made it my own. And I did that for almost 10 years. And then, as technology changed and communications changed, and all the journalists started moving to the website, which at the time I was on it and got on it because they didn't think there were real journalists on the website. They kind of looked down on the web page. So I think that's one reason I was able to get on. But then when everything started moving digital and they kept putting more and more journalists there, then I knew eventually they were going to kick me off because I don't have a journalism degree. I was just writing a little blog, And that the last person I interviewed, I was writing a series of articles called First Time Guest Experience. And I would just pick a random church, and attend and just see how they treated me and write about the experience. Now, I never named the church because, if it wasn't flattering, I didn't want to create a problem. They might have just been having a bad day, But I just went ahead and wrote about that.
We all know how bad days are.
Oh, yeah.
We all have them.
Yes, we do. So I had picked a church. I had a woman prophet, maybe almost 20 years before. I remembered her name. I remembered who she was because she had spoken a prophecy to my husband and I. And everything in that prophecy happened just as she said it. So I considered her a true prophet. But I didn't know her. I mean, this was just, we were in a church. She called us up and said, God wants you to know, and told us some things, and then it happened. So I said, I'm going to attend her church because we really didn't know one another, get to know one another. And I'm just going to write about my experience in her church. So I attended, and lo and behold, and here's another pretty remarkable thing. For people who accept the gifts of the Spirit and the working of the Spirit, some churches don't, some churches do. I was attending a church that did. And I'm going to have to tell this little story so you'll understand how remarkable what happened in the Prophet's Church.
Do.
There was a gentleman who was trying to get his credentials in the denomination that I was attending. And they would not give it to him because before he got saved, he had had a divorce and he didn't want the divorce. The wife just left him. He didn't have a choice. So he was penalized for that. No, you can't be, an ordained minister if you're divorced.
Divorced. Wow.
Yeah. And so I was talking to him by the coffee pot in between Sunday school and church. And I asked him, well, how is it going? Were you able to get your papers? Because the pastor was pulling for him and trying to get it to go through. And he said, no, they just turned me down flat and it's not going to happen. Well, right after that conversation, we went into the main sanctuary for the church service. And we had barely gotten into the worship and praise when there was a message of tongues. And then it was interpreted, and I remember it to this day. Papers. Wow. Who needs papers? I will make you a fire. Now, fast forward some 20 years later, and I walk into this woman. Her name is Wanda Brown. And I walked into her church thinking nobody's going to know me here. And guess who was here? That guy that got turned down. And God said, papers. Who needs papers? I will make you a fire.
Wow.
He was there. And a bunch of people I knew from that church at that time period. So like my cover was blown. Okay. They went and told her who I was. And I'm like, well, okay. I don't have any, this is just blown. So I said, okay, I'll just trade gears since they introduced me. And now she knows I'm not somebody crazy because they all vouch for me. I said, well, can I write your story? And she graciously said yes. And we had a long conversation. I wrote a nice story about her from that conversation. And afterwards we went to lunch. And in the middle of lunch, she stopped and said, the Lord wants you to know something. He has a place for you and it will open soon. And I said, okay, those things I just file in my file cabinet and say, if God said it, it will happen. Because you don't want to try and make something happen. Okay. Yes. If when God said it, it will happen.
Yeah, it'll happen.
And not long after I published that article about her, the story I wrote about her, I couldn't get on the website anymore. They took my access away. And I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do now? And I thought, wow, I'll just get, when I was at that church, I taught Sunday school and I wrote the equivalent of 7 books while I was there. And I said, well, I'll just see if I can turn these Sunday school lessons into books, and I'll just occupy my time that way. Well, my husband and I had changed churches. It was a church, the very first church I attended when I got saved. And we started attending that church. And he has a Bible college, our pastor does, and asked me to teach a course on writing. So I said, okay, I'll put something together and I'll teach a course on writing. And then his wife asked me to come to the gospel bookstore that you had referenced earlier. She said, we're going to be there promoting, the upcoming courses, and why don't you come with us? And if anybody wants to know about the course you're teaching, you'll be there. And I said, okay, that'll be just fine. Now, the pastor's sister had asked me if I would start a writing group on the West Bank, which I really didn't have any intentions of doing that. I was attending a writing group on the North Shore, and I was fine with that. And I really didn't. And, and I told her, well, we don't have a place to stay. We don't have a place to meet, Diane. And, I gave all my reasons why I couldn't do it. And the main one was we just don't have a place to meet. Yeah. So I go to the gospel bookstore and I brought a flyer because I was going to do a test run in the church to see if anybody would even show up for a writers group before I made a firm decision about pursuing it and maybe looking for a place. I walked into the bookstore with a flyer announcing that the writing group was starting. We were going to meet in the church for the first few ones. And I handed him the flyer and said, "Is it all right to put this in the window?" And he said, "Oh, I know you guys. I've been following you forever."
Oh, wow.
And he said,
Small world.
He said, "You're starting a writing group." And I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "You can meet here."
Wow.
Okay, God, I hear you.
To you. Unbeknownst to you.
Yeah,
somebody you had never met before. Say
right.
He's been following you.
Yeah. Well, he'd been following the writing group. He found us online or something and had been following us, but we were kind of far from Gretna.
So do you guys live on the North Shore?
No, I live on the West Bank. I drove an hour one way and an hour one way back for almost 8 years attending that writing group. Yes, I did.
Wow.
So I said, okay, I've got a place to live. I mean, not live. What am I saying? We've got a place to meet. He doesn't charge us to meet there because we bless the store by bringing people into the store. And that, to him, that's payment enough.
Yes. More customers.
Right.
Eyes on his merchandise.
Yeah. And, most of we have speakers and I pay them, and most of them take the money I pay them and spend it in the bookstore before they leave.
Before they even leave.
Yeah, because it's a nice bookstore.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. And so my test run, I had kind of told God, well, if we don't have, at least more than 10 people come per meeting, then I really don't think that, there's any reason. There's just not going to be enough interest. We had 15 people at every meeting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Don't challenge God because he's smarter than you are.
Every meeting.
Every meeting.
Y'all just meet on the third Saturdays of the month.
Yeah. Well, now this was right at the beginning, and I don't know. I might have been doing. I don't know if I did that on Saturday. I don't remember. That was like 8 years ago, but they had 15 people come to that church for every meeting. So I really couldn't say no at that point because you want to challenge God and say I want some clarity is fine, but if you keep doing it, now you're getting into rebellion. You know what I mean? So I made the decision. Okay, we'll have the first meeting in the gospel bookstore, and what the woman told me that God had a place for me and will open soon. All of that happened. She told me that in November. And pretty much all of that happened in November of the following year. It was about 1 year later.
Wow.
So I knew, this woman never tells me anything. I'm going to put it in the bank because she's pretty accurate. And when she says the Lord wants you to know something.
Exactly. It sounds like she's got a hotline to the Lord.
Yeah.
A divine connection.
Yeah. So I've been there. Yeah. Been there a good while.
Wow. So can anyone join, or do you have to live in the area?
No, you don't have to live in the area. We just had a woman from Delaware join, another one from Mississippi. In fact, we had maybe 4 people join this past month, and I think there was another one, but I can't really place where she was from yet. Because we have Zoom meetings, and now we didn't initially have the Zoom meetings. COVID started the Zoom meetings. And when things opened up and we were able to go back to the bookstore, I kept it. Because for one,
that was a good idea though.
Yeah, because it gives me a broader reach to have qualified speakers. And now, we can't afford to fly people in. We don't have that kind of budget, but we can Zoom them in. And we've had some really great speakers because I've been able to reach outside the area. In fact, we have a lady from Tennessee at our next meeting, and she will be speaking about writers' rights, RIGHTS, because we do have some rights as writers, and that will be a good meeting. And she'll be on Zoom. She lives in Tennessee. And so, and of course,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And of course, anybody else can join on Zoom, and they're just on Zoom with her. So, everybody is covered in hearing her, the speaker, and what's going on.
Okay, cool. And the $50 is the membership fee, and that gets you what?
Now, the $50, I started calling it a membership fee because, basically that's what it was. And then we just recently filled out the paperwork to be a nonprofit. So what it is now is it's a donation. And you need you need people to donate because there are expenses. Of course, we have to pay to use Zoom. We have to pay for the website. I mean, our overhead is not huge. We pay, I insist, if I have to come out of my own pocket, I'm paying speakers because I believe your labor should be rewarded. And even the Bible says that. You sow spiritual things, it's perfectly okay for you to reap some carnal things. And I've always had the money to pay them. And so that hasn't been a problem, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So the membership fee is a $50 donation, but what all does that get you if you join the writers group?
Okay, that will get you. Okay, you can join as a free member. I call them free and premium. And the only reason I call them premium is because the people who support us financially are making it possible for people to have a free membership. And the free membership will give you a page on our website, which gives you a greater outreach of people who might find you and maybe go to your website. It also gives you one interview with Pursue Your Passion, which is our radio show on Christian Mix 106, that Jennifer Cotney's radio. And it gives you a 10% discount on anything you buy in the gospel bookstore. In fact, I need to give you your membership card so you can get that 10% discount.
Okay. I haven't been there as often as I used to go, but when we used to live over there off of Hancock, which is just a couple of streets over from Franklin. Yeah. And well, it's one street over. Actually, it's the street from between the bridge and the bridge. Hancock is a side street, and then it's Stump. And then Stump turns into Franklin. Right. So, but Franklin runs parallel with Hancock. And we used to live on Hancock. So that's when I started going over there. Yeah. And it's always nice stuff. And he has a online presence too. Yes, he does. So yes, that bookstore. Check it out when you can. That bookstore is probably the last man standing. I think there's some Catholic bookstores in this city because Amazon pretty much has taken over. Yeah, because at one time, William, who's the owner of the gospel bookstore, he told me at one time there were 2,000 Christian bookstores in the nation, and now there are about 700. Oh, wow. Yeah, it took a big cut. And he's been in business since the 70s, a good 40 years. He's been in business. So, he has a lot of relationships and he has great customers. And he's surviving. Sometimes it gets tight, but because of the digital, but he's surviving. But he's keeping up. Yeah. Like I say, he even has an online store. So yes, if you want to support the gospel shop in Gretna, Louisiana. So check it out when you get a chance. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to your childhood. Okay. Which parent was the disciplinarian in your home? Your mom, your dad, both, or neither? It was both. And they both had a different method of discipline. My dad was very controlled if he spanked us or if he needed to, but he preferred to just punish us by telling us, okay, you can't do anything for a month because you did something you shouldn't have done. And we'd just have to stay in the house and couldn't do nothing. And I know one time I had gotten my month punishment, and then I did something else that was bad, and I got another month, and then I forgot I was punished. I'd been punished so long, and I went outside, and my month wasn't up, and I got another month. Poor thing. But it's like parents need to remember kids' memories are not that long. Their
Exactly.
attention spans are not that long. So for you to even make your first month, that's amazing for a child.
Yeah, I know. I'm much.
It's like they forget what it was like to be a kid. It's like, come on
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Now,
And that's the key to parenting. You
now,
have to relate to your kids on their age level.
yeah,
Don't expect them to act like you know how to act. You're an adult. They're kids.
yeah.
It's not they're go ahead.
But I preferred his method of punishment more, even though it was like it's so boring, when you got punished. But my mother, would she punish? She would wait until she was so mad that she did it in absolute anger and could be physically abusive. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, so I really preferred his punishment over hers, but I survived it all. And in fact, she lived with me the last 10 years of her life, and I took care of her.
Wow.
Because,
that's wonderful.
when you look back, I mean, my dad was an alcoholic and he wasn't a faithful husband. So she had a lot of stress in her life. And I think sometimes that stress came out on us.
Yeah, it probably did. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any siblings? And if so, where do you fall in your birth order?
I had siblings. They both died in their 50s. My sister was a drug addict and she died at 43. My brother was a prescription addict. He had a bad accident offshore and hurt his back and got addicted to the pain pills. And my sister used to steal. Yeah, and my sister used to steal his pain pills, and it was all a big mess. We were a very dysfunctional family, And so my brother died of a brain aneurysm. I believe he was 46. And I got to thinking, if I make it out of my 40s, I'm doing pretty good.
And here you are, 67.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think you've done very well. Wow. Do y'all know was it a brain? Because that's what I had. I had a brain stroke, but it was from a birth defect.
Yeah, no, it was.
You say you had an aneurysm?
It was a brain. It was a brain. They called it an aneurysm. I don't know if that's the same as a stroke, but he died. He died in the hospital from it. I don't know if that's maybe a clot in his brain or what exactly happened, but I do know it was a brain aneurysm. And then me and my lover, and my dad died before any of us. He was the first to die. So once my sister died, my brother died, then it was just me and Mom for about 10 years.
Oh, wow. Did she live with you?
She did. She was not good with money when she was married to my dad. He always handled the money. So when he died, she was trying to handle it, and she really wasn't very good at it. And then my sister's daughter had a drug problem and was living with her, and her boyfriend had stolen some money. So it just got to a point where she couldn't pay her bills. Yeah. And I told her, she called me and said, I can't pay my light bill. Can you help me? And I said, yes, you can pack your stuff and you can come over here and live until you can pay your light bill. But I wasn't going to pay the light bill as long as the people who stole her money were living in that house. Because she was, them
figure it out.
She was an enabler, and I knew that. So I told her, you just pack your stuff, come over here. When things work out, you can go back. I'm not going to make you stay here. And she just decided. And then she asked me to help her with the money. And I saw the kind of debt she was in, to the tune of some $40,000 in debt.
Oh, my God.
And
was she a shopper?
No, she just didn't know how to handle her money. And then the drug addicts were stealing her money, too. Because she was hard of hearing. She was hard of hearing.
Wow.
And they could slip in and get a credit card and slip it back in before she woke up.
Wow.
So it just got out of hand. We had to sell her house. Now, that left my niece, and this is a pretty remarkable story, too, because sometimes you need tough love. They had no place to go when we had them evicted and we sold that house. They were on their own. But today, She is the most wonderful Christian you ever want to meet. The boyfriend,
Really?
he is sold out for God. He always carries his Bible around with him. And they are both serving God. And she called me many years after she had been through 7 drug rehabs. And the last one was a Christian drug rehab, and that one stuck. And she has been off drugs.
Why?
I don't know. What
Did you
think?
Say Christian?
Yeah. The secular ones just didn't work.
To Jesus Christ?
Oh, yes. And I was shocked. Well, first she called me because she wanted to reconcile with my mother, her grandmother. And she was crying. And she said, Aunt Teena, if you hadn't thrown me out that house, I'd still be in that house taking drugs and still be a drug addict. And she thanked me and she cried. She thanked me for the tough love, honey. And she calls me all the time. She calls me all the time. And I got 2 grandkids that call me all the time. They ask me these theological questions that would take a year's college class to answer. And they want me to do it in a text.
Can you call me?
Yeah.
Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
This is not a text question.
No, it's not.
Oh my God. Okay, with your sister and brother, where did you fall in between? That group?
I was the middle child, so I was the one that middle childs. People gravitate towards the baby, and then they gravitate towards the firstborn because it's the firstborn, and the middle child kind of gets lost in the middle. Yep, nothing special about that middle child.
I'd say no. I'd say that's the best position. Because you turned out to be the best.
Well, yeah, I survived.
Who ended up taking care of you? Yeah. No, but you took care of your mom.
Yeah, I did.
To the end.
I did. And it was getting bad.
I'd say the middle is special.
Yeah. Actually, death, it's going to sound odd to say this, but death can be a blessing. Because my mother was developing dementia. She had asked me who I was one day. And when she asked me that, I knew, she's developing it. It's going to get progressively worse. And in the middle of that, they found cancer in 3 places in her body. It wasn't active. Oh my God. But they said, okay, it could become active. And I was bringing her every 3 months to get checked and make sure, because they had medication that she could take. And, and I'm thinking, okay, she's developing dementia and then she's going to have to deal with cancer. This is going to be horrific for her. But I just committed it to God, and I said, God, whatever, I'll just take it day to day, and whatever I have to do for her, that's what me and my husband will do, Yeah. And 2 years ago during Hurricane Ida, she got pneumonia and became sepsis, and she died during that time. Wow. Yeah, she was at my...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, she was at my niece's house, and they were not right in where the worst of the hurricane was going to come from. And I told her, Mom, you're going to be safer there, because we were going to stay until we knew how bad it was. So I sent her over there, and I said, you stay. If something takes the roof off, how are you going to run away with us and find a place? Yeah. So she didn't want to go, but she did. And that was where she died. The next time I saw her was in a hospital in Mississippi. Yep.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I hate to hear about anybody who has a parent that dies, because both of my parents are living. My grandmother just celebrated her 98th birthday last Saturday.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah. On actually the day we had the meeting at the bookstore on the 17th.
Oh, really?
August 17th. Yeah. She made 98.
That's great. Yeah. I know you hate to lose them, but I also, it was softened by the fact that I knew she wasn't going to get any better, and her suffering was going to be terrible.
Bad.
It was going to be bad. So I just kind of accepted that as God's grace. The same thing with my sister. When my mother died, my mother found her. She had moved back in with my mother because she had no place to go, and she went and got in the bathtub, and she got high first, and she was going to wash her hair, and she turned on the hot water and not the cold. And when my mother found her in the tub, her back of her arms, because she stuck her head under the faucet in the tub, and that's how she washed her hair, and she was severely burnt. She was severely burnt. In fact,
how could she take that? Was she that high?
She was just that high.
Hot water?
She did not. She must have took something really strong, because
my God.
It was, in fact, they had to send her to a burn unit in Baton Rouge. It was so bad. And I had prayed, because I knew my sister, she would try to live the Christian life. She wouldn't, and then she wouldn't last. And she was in and out, in and out, in and out. And so I had prayed, because I know God's powerful. And even in a coma, she could wake up and say, God, forgive me. And I knew, because before that happened, she had even told me how afraid she was that she would die and go to hell. So if she had any wits about her at all when she was in and out of a coma, then I know she would have asked for forgiveness. But I didn't. I never prayed that God would heal her. I prayed that if it was her time to die, that there would be nothing a machine or a doctor could do to stop it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, she needed dialysis, and the doctor said, well, if we give her dialysis, because she had a lot of other problems too. And he said, if we give her dialysis, it's going to kill her. If we don't give her dialysis, it's going to kill her.
Oh, wow.
So there was nothing
it's like
that man or machine could do.
Nothing to do to relieve it. No.
Yes. Yeah. So I knew that was God's will. And, even though, the thief on the cross got in at the last minute. So I still have hope.
At the very last limit.
Exactly.
Minute.
So, I still have hope, that she maybe cried out in that last hour, and I'll see her one day again.
If a guilty thief on the cross did his last attempt, Lord, if it be your will, let me see this be in your kingdom.
Yeah.
If he can do it at that last minute, anything's possible.
Yeah.
So prayerfully she did, and you guys will be reunited
one day.
And we'll have a heavenly Holy Ghost party.
Yeah.
So do you believe you had a normal childhood? As a child, what got you in trouble the most? Were you talkative or quiet, a liar or honest, selfish or kind-hearted, stubborn or easygoing, a bully or a nice kid?
Okay, normal childhood depends on how you define normal.
Exactly. I've had everybody say that. Well, what is normal?
Because I will say we had a very dysfunctional family. Okay. And that's really all I can say about that, because all I know as normal is what my childhood was. But, I do have other friends, and I can see that there could have been and maybe should have been something better, but there just wasn't. And that's all I can really say about normal. And as far as what I was as a child, no, I'm sorry.
What got you in trouble the most?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Quiet?
Okay.
A liar or honest, selfish or kind-hearted, stubborn or easygoing, a bully or a nice kid?
Actually, I was a pothead.
As a child?
Well, 13. I started smoking pot at 13. Tina? Yeah. I did. Yeah.
At 13.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I was called a wild child. In fact, I had a boyfriend, and I was jailbait. He was way too old for me, but he played a guitar, and he came to the house one day, and he said, I learned a song just for you, and I'm going to play it. This is who you are. And he played a song called Wild Child.
The one that's on the radio?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in your little 13-year-old mind, you just thought, oh, for me?
Yeah.
How old was he? If you don't mind me asking.
He was 20, I think.
And you were 13?
My parents did not supervise us. We were just there. And, they both worked, and I just did my own thing.
Wow.
My sister was my sister was twice as bad as I was. I was tame compared to her. But it was they had their problems. My dad with his alcoholism. My mother was, with an unfaithful husband, and she never drank or smoked, but he did, and he was not faithful. And so, you just don't know what's normal and what's not normal when you're growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in those situations. It's like, but like you say, what is normal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, and that goes from person to person. If you ask a room full of people, you'll get a room full of different answers.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's view of normal is somebody else's view isn't necessarily your view.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was your most favorite memory from your childhood and why?
I thought about that question when I first read this, and I don't really have a favorite memory of my childhood.
That's sad.
It's the truth. I know when I married my husband, he was like, he had the best time growing up, He had a stable home and two parents that, actually kind of loved each other. They had their problems, and I'm like, would you just shut up? I'm sick of hearing about your wonderful life, because I did not have a happy childhood.
Wow. Well, on the outside, it appeared like I had a wonderful childhood because my mom always wanted everything to be proper and in order. She'd have me dressed to the nines. Even when I went to school, I was like, I don't want to wear these clothes. Other kids are wearing clothes from Wieners and other discount stores. But no, she had to go buy me stuff from Foley's and Sackwitz. I'm like, ugh. So I had my cross to bear too. And she favored my brother over me.
Oh, yeah, that hurts.
It was like, yeah.
That definitely hurts.
That's gone on my since he's been born. He's always been the golden child. And she's always asked, why can't you be more like your brother?
Oh,
and
wow.
It's like,
because you're not a boy, for one thing.
No, and I'm not I don't desire to be him.
Right. Well, when we went shopping, my mama brought me to the thrift store and told me to look for the things that were on sale.
At the thrift shop?
Yeah, because they used to put colors on them, and okay, today's special is the blue tag, 50% off, and I had to look for those.
Oh my goodness.
You look back on your life and you think, well, that's really sad. And in a way, it's almost funny too. You actually survived that.
Yeah. Well, you're a survivor in more than one way. That's definitely a testimony. You are a survivor. Wow. So, okay, so you don't have a favorite memory.
No, I can't. I couldn't really come up with anything that. Okay, you know what? I'll back that up, because there is something I never forgot, and we were living in.
You never won an award or something? Had a teacher that was nice to you?
No. I'll tell you what my favorite memory was. Because I never forgot this. When we were living in Germany, my dad decided, well, we're here. Let's see some more, other countries. We'll go visit Switzerland. So he got in his car and he got all what he needed with passports and things. And we went and drove through the Swiss Alps. And he stopped because he really stopped because he needed to use the bathroom, was going to go in the bushes. But sitting in the car, I looked out and there was this beautiful valley with like a few cows on the mountainsides and a quaint little village at the bottom. And it was so peaceful and so serene. And I never forgot that image. So if there's anything I took away from my childhood is that day in the Swiss Alps when I looked down at that village and that peaceful place, and it gave me hope that there is something better than what I was experiencing. Never forgot that.
Now, that is beautiful. So why didn't you dig deep and tell me that a minute ago? You had me write down, because I write your answers. I tried to go back and scratch out no good childhood memories. It's like, how can you forget that?
It came up and it just popped in my head.
Like, okay, come on, focus. Okay, who was your best friend in elementary school, and are you guys still in? Oh, hold on. You say you were in Germany when you were a kid?
Yeah, for a couple of years.
Where were you born?
Oh, I was born in Arizona. My dad was in the military, and the military sent him to Germany for a couple of years at the bases they had over there.
And the family went.
Yeah, we went with him.
Teena, you're
Yeah.
So you're a military family.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, well, who was your best friend? Well, considering that you moved around a lot when you were a kid, did you have a best friend in elementary school?
Not really, because the military moved him about every 2 years. And I did have a friend when we were living in Fort Knox that I had made a friend. Her name was Linda. And we kind of, I guess we could say that we were best friends for a time, but then, that didn't last very long with him. Actually, my dad retired from the military when we were living in Fort Knox, and he brought us back to, well, they're both from the Kaplan area, New Iberia area. So he basically wanted to go home, and he settled in New Orleans.
Okay. All right. So what was your favorite junk food in middle school?
Probably Pop-Tarts. My mother thought that was a good breakfast, and I didn't mind. Pop-Tarts and milk before you go off to school.
Do you still eat Pop-Tarts?
Oh, no, not anymore. I eat very healthy now.
Yeah, Miss, boy, that's coming up.
Yeah.
Later in the conversation.
Right.
So what group were you a part of in high school? The Populars, the cheerleader, you already said, the pothead. That's the last on the list.
Yeah. I was a pothead from about 13 to 15, and I got saved at 15, and that's when that went away.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
God saved your life.
He did.
At 15.
Yeah, and you know what? This is kind of interesting, too, because we used to go to a place in West Wego. They had a band, and this was back in the 70s. And every Friday night, a band would play. And my pothead friends were kind of moving on to the harder stuff, and I didn't really want to move on to the harder stuff. And I remember before we went in, and it's like I didn't have any money to buy drugs, but there was always somebody around willing to share.
Who had?
Yes,
of course.
And anyhow, he had come out and he had a handful of pills, and he said, "Oh man, try these. These are great, So you want to be like everybody else. You pop a couple in your mouth." And I went in there, and I was so disgusted with myself because I didn't want to do that. And there was a band playing.
The crowd.
There was a band playing. Jesus is just all right with me.
Wow.
Secular song.
After you just popped them pills.
And they're singing, Jesus is just all right with me. And I'm thinking, Jesus, help me. And that's all I prayed. It was like, God, help me. Jesus, help me. And he did.
Wow.
Because I don't think it was all that long before I had a pretty dramatic experience with the Lord that changed my life.
Would you care to share
that? Okay. Okay. Actually, I think God started dealing with me in junior high. I was very introverted. I didn't have a lot of friends, and I would read. I would just read all the time, and mostly books about talking animals and things like that, But then one day I decided, I'm just going to read every book in the library. And I started at a shelf, and I said, I'm just going to start right here. And whatever's next, when I finish that book, I'm going to get that book. And I'm just going to read every book in the library. And one day I came across...
That's a huge... that's a huge goal.
Yeah, well, I was an avid reader, and I really didn't have a lot of friends, so that's how I filled my time. Gave me an escape from the struggles that I went through. Yeah. And one day I came to this, there was a row of paperback books, so I said, well, I'll start on the row of paperback books. And I pulled out a book called The Cross and the Switchblade. And it's probably would not, if I had been looking for a book that I preferred, I probably would not have read it. But it was next in line, so I brought it home and I read it. And there was just something about that book. I didn't understand it. I thought it was a fiction book, but it was really the life of David Wilkerson and how Teen Challenge started is what it was about. But it just somehow it never clicked in my mind that it was a true story. And I remember I read it again and I thought, what is it about this book? There's just something different. But and I had to give it back. I couldn't keep it. And then I just kind of blew it off. And then we came to New Orleans. We moved to New Orleans maybe a year or two after I read that book. And I was walking through I was in the 9th grade, and there was a poster on the wall that said David Wilkerson was speaking in the River Gate. If you remember that far back, the River Gate don't exist anymore. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got to go to this. And I went home and I told my mom, oh, mom, David Wilkerson, he's speaking at the River Gate and I really want to go. And she said, well, who's that? And I said, well, he's an author. And she said, well, you're just going to be bored. I'm not bringing you over that bridge. She didn't like driving over the bridge and just blew that out of the water. But God didn't forget about me because a friend of mine I was smoking pot with, her mother brought us to, she was, of course, having problems with her daughter was named Teena and I was Teena. We were two Teenas. She was blonde. I was a brunette. The same. Yeah. Yeah. And her mother brought us...
Teena? Yeah,
no, my name's...
Both your names were spelled the same?
No, our names were not spelled the same. She was Tina, and I was Teena.
Okay, that's why I said both of y'all names were spelled the same, and you said yes.
Oh, no, I misunderstood you. No, the names were different, and then our lives took two different paths, too, but... her mother brought us to a place called the House of Living Water. After I had prayed that prayer, listening to Jesus is just all right with me. And there was
a church, was it?
It was. I didn't identify it as a church. It was really a storefront mission, but I didn't know anything about Protestant anything. I was raised Catholic. So Teena told me we were going to a Jesus rally and there would be a bunch of good-looking guys there. And I'm like, okay, I don't know nothing about Jesus, but I'm going to see them good-looking guys, So, I got my self all sexy as a 15-year-old can be. And I said, we're going to see some good-looking guys. Me and her were the only ones in the place. Yeah, it was just like a house. Well, it wasn't a house. It was in like a strip mall thing. But when you walked in, there was like a row of 10 metal chairs and a music stand. And I'm looking around for all the good-looking guys. And there were none. And she sat down. Wow. And then I think there were a couple of little girls that came in after that. maybe elementary age girls. And that was it. That was the rally, a big rally of 4.
Oh, wow.
And this young guy.
A crowd floor, standing room only.
Yeah.
In the storefront mission.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there and I'm really miffed about this time, that she brought me to this rally and there's 4 girls. And he preached, Jesus is coming back and we need to be ready. And so when he finished that message, she elbowed me and she said, I'm praying to get ready. Do you want to pray to get ready? And I'm like, sure, why not? There weren't any good looking guys. I'll pray to get ready. And I was not expecting anything. I was not really looking for anything. But when I prayed that prayer, there was an explosion of joy within me. It shocked me. It was just like something, I'd never experienced anything like that in the Catholic Church. And I knew I had encountered God, but I didn't associate him with the institutional church. It never crossed my mind, well, I need to go to a church now. And we went back, and she didn't stay a Christian very long. She went back to the drugs and eventually cut me off because I was trying to get off of the drugs. And
so y'all had nothing in common anymore.
Yeah, pretty much. But I was still struggling and getting off the drugs too. And I had a relapse one night, and my parents, they had went to Lafayette, I think, to visit some relatives and left us home, me and my brother home alone, my sister. And I took some drugs, and then I was sorry I did it. So I called, and I was attending a church at that time that was I could walk to, because we lived in a trailer park. I could walk to the end of the trailer park, make a right, and there was a church right there. So I knew, I'm trying to get help. And I called the pastor and I said, I took some drugs. I don't know what to do. So he sent the youth pastor and his wife, and they came and they talked, and I kept talking in circles, and he finally just said, and a little tough love here. He said, Teena, if you just have to decide, do you want God or not? And if you don't want God, then there's nothing I can do, and I'm leaving. And he stood up to walk out the door. And when he put his hand on the doorknob, I said, stop. And I fell on my knees and I said, well, I want God. And the minute I said that, it felt like a rushing water flushed through my back, like a river just flushed into me and like it came out of the front. And when it did, it felt like something was washed out of me. And from that day to this, I have never desired to abuse drugs again. And that's pretty much my salvation.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's the kind of things you don't forget. And even actually before that, before I went in that church, there was this, I got to know God before I got to know the church's version of God, because I didn't repent in tears for my sin. I was just met with an explosion of joy. So I knew a God of joy. And then I still had problems. Of course, sometimes I'd cry at night when I'm alone, and that presence would just envelop me. And I would stop crying and I would start laughing. And then I'd be laughing so hard, I'd say, you got to stop. I feel like I'm going to explode. So
if somebody's hurt, they'd be like, what are you laughing at?
So, and that went on for like 6 months. I don't think I'm special. I just think there was nobody else. So God did it. And I used to pray and ask God where I could find other people like me. And one day I was invited to go into that church that was behind my house. I used to walk up and down from that church praying, God, where can I find other people that know you like I do? And a friend asked me, you want to go to church Sunday? And I said, sure, why not? And the minute I stepped in that door, I knew I belonged there.
Wow. That's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Feeling like you're at home.
Yeah, I knew I belonged there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the pastor and his wife were very, very nice to me. They would They would, look out for me. Whenever they had guest speakers and went out to lunch, they would bring me. I mean, who does that,
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were very good to me.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a totally, I'm going to have to switch well, no, maybe not. The next question is, when did you get interested in the opposite sex?
Yeah, I'm 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did I.
Yep, pretty young. In fact, I was doing a lot of things I shouldn't have been doing at 13.
I had asked my mom for birth control pills, and she was like, "You don't need birth control. What do you need birth control pills for?" And I was like, "Just to have them."
Yeah.
And she was like, "No, you're not getting birth control." And I'm like, "Okay, I think she's asking for birth control pills. Obviously, she's doing or planning on doing something that needs birth control pills, and she's trying to be responsible."
Yeah.
She didn't take it that way. She said no. Yeah. So I had to go to the free clinic. Me and my friends, we skipped school and put ourselves on birth control pills.
Well, that was smart, girl, for 13.
Yeah.
That was real smart.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to have no babies beforehand.
Yeah, well, I lost my virginity at 13 too, but I wasn't smart enough to go looking for birth control. Fortunately, I never got pregnant.
Yeah, but like I say, no, I wasn't having it. Yeah, ain't nothing like a baby with a baby.
Yeah.
So, let's see. How old were you when you were allowed to start dating? Like really dating? The guy come over to the house and pick you up and y'all go out on a date.
Honey, our parents didn't care what we did. There was no you were allowed or not. I just did what I wanted to do. And half the time, they didn't even know where I was.
Did you go on your first date?
Probably when I was 13.
Oh, Lord.
I know. I was a wild child, okay?
Yeah, you said it. Wow. See, and I wasn't allowed. Mama had said I couldn't start dating until I was 16. But some kind of way I still managed, because then it was the skating rink.
Yeah.
And we go hang out at the skating rink. And we went there every Friday or Saturday night. And that was our club.
Yeah.
And I'd go and meet, my friends. And of course, the guys would be there, some guys that would be there. And she never knew the wisest, any better.
Yeah.
So she just dropped me off at my club.
At your club. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had one trailer in the trailer park, and that's where we hung out, where the pot was.
I'm sure your parents didn't know that.
No, they didn't know that. Nope. They did not.
So what did you want to be when you grew up? I know you said you mentioned you knew the finances. You didn't attend college.
No, I never attended college. I had thought about being a veterinarian at one time because I liked animals.
You love animals.
Animals were nice to you, and sometimes people are not.
Yeah.
So I figured I'll just become a veterinarian and hang around the animals. They love me.
Exactly.
But that's not what happened, because God, he changed. It was 3 days after I graduated from high school that he told me what to do. So, I mean, really? I knew what to do. I just didn't know how to do it. And it turned into a huge disaster.
So what did you do after college? I mean, after
high school?
High school.
Yeah. 3 days after I graduated from high school, I was thinking, well, what am I going to do now? And I was praying. And I heard, and I don't hear like with my ears when God speaks to me, I hear it in my heart. And, I don't trust my thoughts. I suppose God could influence your thoughts, but so can the devil. And but when I hear it loud and clear and I hear it in my heart, in my chest, then I'm pretty sure that's God. And he said to go in the neighborhood and tell people about me. And I did not. So it's like he said, jump. I said, how high? And ran out the door. I really should have tried to go to Bible college, or at least go and talk to my pastor, about that. And he would have given me some guidance. But no, God said, go tell people about me. So I just ran out the door and started telling people about him. And one of the neighbors got drunk and came to the house and told my mom, what's wrong with your daughter over there telling me about Jesus? And my mom's like, what are you doing? It was a bit of a disaster.
So you went right over to the neighbor's house.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not on the street.
Yeah, you said go in the neighborhood, so okay.
You go save the neighborhood.
Yeah. And that wasn't the way to do about it. But I mean, you know what I did, which was really, it was stupid. And if I hadn't done it, what I did is I got mad at God, because I'm like trying to talk to people, and I'm like, God, why should my unsaved parents who don't even believe in you pay to support me while I'm doing your work? And I just got mad. Now I think if I would have sat down and not got mad and just prayed and asked God, okay, how do I do this? He would have told me, but I didn't. I just resorted to anger, and I wasn't going to hear anything he said. I was just mad.
Yeah.
And that, so I
when you mad, that just shuts him out.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, okay, you be mad over there.
You be mad. You'll be back.
I'm going to be over here.
Yep.
Exactly. I'll be over here when you get over being mad.
Yeah. And I eventually did come back. Well, actually, I tried to leave the area. I really wanted to obey him. I just didn't have the strength. And then I had all that anger. And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to join the Air Force, and I'm going to leave, and I'm just going to put this part of my life behind me. I'm just going to forget it, sweep it under the rug. So I joined the Air Force, and I was signed up. I had, did the oath of office and the whole deal. And one day the recruiter called me, and he said, you don't want to go in the Air Force. And I'm like, what is he talking about? I've already sworn the oath of office. You can't tell me I don't want to go in the Air Force.
And the recruiter told you this?
Yes. And I'm thinking, that man's nuts. And I had a date to leave, but it was like I had to wait, because back in the 70s, they didn't really want women in the military. So the guys that were in there the same time as me, you're leaving in 3 days. Oh, you're leaving in 6 months. I'm like, okay. So I'm waiting for my 6 months, and he calls and tells me I don't want to go in the Air Force. And I was so shocked. I didn't even say nothing, and he hung up, and I said, well, that's stupid. I'm going to get my orders in 6 months and I'll be out of here. And I got a honorable discharge from the Air Force in the mail. God did not want me.
You never served?
I swore the oath of office. That's about as far as I got. I was legally.
But you weren't.
I was legally in the Air Force. Yes, ma'am. I signed all the paperwork. I was just waiting for them to say, "Come on this date," and he got me out.
Wow.
And I was mad about that too. So what am I going to do now?
Hadn't you learned yet? You can't get mad at God. He just gonna sit over there and be like, okay, I'll be over here when you get your little tantrum out.
Yeah, pretty much.
You can't bully God.
Yeah, so I'm stuck, and I'm humbled, and I'm living back at home, and my parents are not happy because I had moved back home because I was in an apartment. And I was supposed to leave in about 3 months. So when the lease ended, I said, let me move back home. I'm going to be leaving, I think it was in February. And then the recruiter got me out, and I don't know what I'm going to do now, So I remember, and now God does not speak to me every day, okay? At the beginning of my experience, he did speak only to give me direction. So I didn't know what to do now. And I have no doubt God had something to do with me getting out of the Air Force. So I'm washing my car. I'm outside washing my car, and I'm thinking, what? I said, okay, God, I'll tell you, here's what I'm going to do. I'll go back to church, but just on Sunday, and the rest of the time, I'm just going to live any way I want to. And I heard him say,
no.
I heard in my heart, not in my thoughts, go to church. And I said, okay, I will. So the next morning, I get up. And I got all ready for church, and I got in my little car, and I was going to go to the church, that first church I had attended before I backslid, which was not far, maybe 5 minutes from my house at the time. And
y'all still living in the trailer at this time?
No, my parents had moved after I graduated. They had bought a house, which was not far from the trailer park. Yeah. And not far from that church. So I get in the car and I'm driving, and in my mind, I'm going to that church. And then I looked up and I'm like, I'm on the West Bank Expressway. Where in the heck am I going? And I just kept driving, and then I just kept driving. And then I pulled into the lot of First Assembly of God Church, was pastored by Marvin Gorman at the time. And I pulled into the parking lot, and I thought, well, here's a church. If I turn around and go back home, I'm going to miss half the service. It took me 30 minutes to get here. I'll just go in this church. I told God I was going to church. And so I walked in the door, and the minute I stepped in the door, I had that, I know I belong here.
Wow.
And I did.
That's a good feeling.
And God used Reverend Gorman. You know, he ended his ministry shamefully, but at that time, you know, good men, they start out, they do good things, and they have every intention of doing good. And sometimes, like King David, they make big mistakes.
They fall.
Yeah.
Yep.
But this was before all of that happened with him. And God used him to bring a ton of healing in my life. I would sit in that church in the balcony and just cry my eyes out, you know, and I didn't really know what to say or what to do. And Brother Gorman had prayed for me when I finally started moving down to the ground floor instead of hiding, you know, upstairs. He had prayed for me a couple of times, and I just received a lot of healing. And that's also where I met my husband, was in that church.
At church?
Yes.
Wow.
At that church. The best husband in the world for me. He's just was perfect for me.
You met your person.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I never left New Orleans. I mean, I'd wanted to, but apparently God didn't want me to. So I've been here since the 70s. And, you know, my husband is, he was going to leave New Orleans too, but they wouldn't put him back on a boat. He was in the Coast Guard. So he got out of the Coast Guard because they wouldn't put him on a boat, and he started teaching at Delgado College. And if he hadn't done that, I probably never would have met him.
But you met him at church.
But I met him at church, yes, because he would help the children's pastors. And I'll tell you how I met him as Brother Gorman had preached a sermon, and he had talked about, and the gist of the sermon is, if you don't know what to do, then just do something. Because a moving vessel is easier to guide than one that is sitting stationary.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm going to do something. I'm going to go volunteer to do something at the church. And so I did. I volunteered, and they sent me to help in children's church. And that's where I met him. He was taking the offering. They had a large children's church, about 200 kids. And I was there for crowd control and bring them to the potty and stuff like that. And he was at the front. And the first time I saw him, he was taking up an offering. And he was telling the kids, you know, that, you know, you have to give to God. And if you don't give what you're supposed to give to God, then, you know, it's not good. And this little boy's hand, and they had already received the offering. The little boy's hand shot up, and he's waving at him, and he said, "Is it too late to put something in the offering?" his mom had given him some money and he had kept it. And that's when first time I noticed that man.
Wow.
First time I saw him.
So how long have you guys been married?
Oh, we're on year 39.
Okay.
But I tell you, the reason I really didn't like him when I first met him. I mean, I didn't hate him or anything, but he just wasn't, didn't interest me kind of thing.
Type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
he wasn't bad enough.
No. Yeah. Didn't fit my wild child. Yeah. I tell you what, you know who he was? I was King Saul and he was Samuel.
Wow. Total opposite.
Yeah. But God worked that out in a way. I was studying the Bible one day and I was reading about Samuel. In the book of Samuel, how King Saul had been sent to find some donkeys. And then he couldn't find him. And a servant said, "Oh, well, let's go talk to the prophet." And he said, "Oh, no, let's go back. We've been out here a long time." And the servant convinced him, "Let's go see the prophet before we go back." And when he got there, he found out that God had chosen him to be the king of Israel. God had something for him there. And that stuck in my head. It's like, well, sometimes God doesn't work in these big, flowery, booming ways. Maybe he just sends somebody with a suggestion. Yeah. Yep. Or maybe he just sends somebody that suggests, let's go over here. And I thought about that and I put that away. And a couple of Sundays later, I'm walking in church and this woman stops me and I don't know who she is. And she said, "The church is having a picnic, next Saturday, and you live close to me, and you could ride with me and go to that picnic." And at first, I was a little creeped out, thinking, "I don't know this woman. How does she know where I live?"
Exactly. I've never seen her before.
Exactly.
That's creepy.
And I'm thinking about backing up, and kind of walking on, but then that lesson I had studied about how sometimes God uses somebody to just suggest you go somewhere and God will have something for you there.
Yeah.
So I said, well, okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'll go to her. She gave me her address, which was not far from where I lived. I don't know how she knew where I lived, but but I knew where she lived. So so she said, "You can ride with us." And I said, "Okay, I'll ride with you. Maybe God has something for me at this picnic. Who knows? Well, I'll just go to the picnic." Yeah. And this church had it was 3,000 people. And this was for the Sunday school, which was huge. And they were going to have everybody. It's going to be a mass of people there. And we got there and there was one family cooking hamburgers. And I drove up with the other family, and that's all that showed up. Well, one more. Wait, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm trapped. I cannot leave. I'm sitting there watching this guy cook hamburgers, just hating on myself for being so stupid to think God had something for me at this picnic.
Here.
Yeah. And then I see this little blue Honda drive up and this big, tall, lanky guy get out. And it's the guy from the children's church that was taking up the offering.
Wow.
And he walked over and plopped his behind on my table. And I'm thinking, go away. I'm not in a good mood. Just go away.
Go away. I'm not in the mood, dude. Move on.
And he just talked and talked and talked and talked. And I'm so miserable. And finally, the people said, okay, we're ready to go. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Let me just get out of here.
Wow.
And I kicked myself all the way home. You thought God hadn't something for you at that picnic. You are the stupidest person on planet Earth. Well, I go to teach my Sunday school because I had got promoted from helping in children's church to teaching a class. So I'm going to teach my Sunday school class. And who shows up? my future husband, that talked my ear off. Yep. Talked my ear off. And there he is again. And he's talking and talking and talking. And I'm like, I'm trying to get ready for my Sunday school class with you. I'm thinking, just go away, you know?
Yeah.
But he just followed around, talk, you know? And finally he asked me, he was a big spender. He had a blue Honda with no air conditioning because he was from Texas and he didn't think he'd need it down in Louisiana. And and he invited me to go to a free concert. And we went to Taco Bell. That was my first date with him.
At Taco Bell.
Yeah. Big spender. Wow. So, you know, we talked and I'm like, okay, well, you know, he's a nice guy. We'll just talk. We'll be friends. And of course, he had other intentions. And I think God did too, because we would just talk. He would come over. We would talk, a lot of talking. And then one day we would walk around the block and talk instead of sitting on the couch and talk, because, you know, that has a danger zone. So he would come over, we would walk around the block and just talk and talk and talk, and he'd go home. And one day we realized that our conversation had changed and we hadn't even realized it, because sometimes we'd say questions like, well, you know, what if you ever got married? How many kids would you want to have? Well, you know, it's questions like that. And then one day we were talking and realized we were saying, when we get married, we're going to have 2 kids. And I'm like, where'd that come from? You know?
Exactly. You think it like, hold on, what's happened here?
Yeah. But, you know.
It rubbed off on you.
Yeah, but, you know, he had his reservations because, I mean, when he met me, my mother had just divorced my father. My sister was on her way to jail. And he was not accustomed to that kind of dysfunction in a family. But he showed up one day, knocked on the door, and he handed me a white rose, because I had told him I wasn't a virgin too. You know, I was just going to be honest. Yeah. And he showed up with a white rose, and he said, God told me she's pure in my eyes. Why isn't she pure in yours? And he handed me that white rose.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a keeper.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, and we've had a great marriage. I mean, I know some Christians that have struggled and they've had divorces, and sometimes that happens and it's unfortunate. But no, we've always just been content with each other. Never wanted to. Of course, he's very chill. He doesn't, what he thinks is mad to me isn't mad. You know, I mean, I might slam a few cabinets. Yeah, I'm in there slamming cabinets, and he's just talking in a calm voice. Doors. You know, yeah, exactly. Yep, he's
looking at you like, what is your problem?
Yeah. He is the Samuel who patiently endured until God worked some of that nonsense out of me.
Wow.
Yeah, I love him to death.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you guys have a wedding? How long did you date when you finally started dating?
Okay. He was 29 when we met. I was 28. We met at the picnic in April, and we kind of dated a few months. And then when our conversation changed, we just kind of started talking about actually maybe this is for us to do. And we got engaged in August, and we got married on December 28th. So it was a little less than a year.
Same year?
Yeah, the same year. Okay. Yeah, yeah. But it worked, and it worked great.
Well, I'll say 39 years ain't nothing to frown at.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to get there. I'm on number 3. My first 2 were mistakes. I should not have married the first 2 guys I married, but I felt pressured at home because of my mom. We didn't get along, so I called myself going to run away.
Yeah.
Little did I know, I ran away from my mom to Monster.
Oh, wow.
Who had never hit me as long as we were dating. But as soon as he put that ring on my finger, the boxing gloves came out.
Oh, that's awful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's harsh.
Beat me even while I was pregnant. Yes, ma'am. Then he went off because he joined the Air Force, and I was safe. I lived with his mom while he was in basic training, and then when he came home, he came in when he got out of when he finished Air Force training.
Mm-hmm.
He came back and picked me up from his mom's house, and we moved on base to where he was stationed at Lackland Air Force Base.
Yeah.
But he was brutal.
Yeah.
Talk about jumping out of the skillet. I jumped right out the skillet into a frying pan.
Wow.
Hot grease.
Yeah. You just don't know. Sometimes like you said, he never touched you. You didn't know what you were getting yourself into.
But
yeah.
But I didn't like him like that. Not enough to marry him.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was trying to get away from her.
Right.
Because I didn't like the way she was treating me.
Right.
So,
and his
like I say, I
was
jumped
worse.
from the...
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Little did I know. Because like I say, we never had a physical fight while we dated. But I knew he wasn't my husband. Even as a matter of fact, while we were walking down the aisle, we got married in a little chapel.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were walking down the aisle, I heard, I'm going to say something. The Holy Spirit said, you know you don't have to do this.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I think
But I felt trapped. Like, okay, how can I go back home? Because I ran away. Literally, I had packed up my clothes and been throwing them over the fence, and he'd get them off the, the other side of the fence and take them to his place. So by the time, and I left the night of my birthday, my 18th birthday.
Oh, wow. So you were an adult. Yeah.
Yeah. So nobody would be able to tell me anything. I didn't realize that we wouldn't be able to get married because my birthday that year was in March, and that was on Good Friday. The courthouses were closed.
Oh.
So the joke was on me. We ended up getting married the following Monday on April 1st. Was April 1st?
April Fool's Day, huh?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and then I didn't do much better with my second go round, but we lasted 10 years. And he was my best friend's brother. And we had been best friends all through high school. And this was after I got divorced from number one.
Right.
And we went on a date. He had asked his sister to call your friend, and ask her if she want to go to the movies. And we went. I remember I was like, no, I don't want to be a third wheel, because I thought I was just going with her and her boyfriend. And I was like, I don't want to be a third wheel. So she was like, no, my brother asked, Joe wants you to go. I was like, huh? And I knew who he was because he was her older brother. He used to bring us to school sometime, and we even went to modeling school. So sometimes he'd drop us off at modeling school, but I had never thought of him in that way. So for her to tell me that he had asked her to call me, I felt, special. Yeah. Like, okay, I'll go. So we went, and I remember we saw, what was the name of that movie? Raw with Eddie Murphy. Yeah. And after he dropped me back off at home, well, we drove around and drove all over the city after the movie and just talking. And when he dropped me back off at home, it was late. And when he went back home, he told her, he said, that's going to be my wife. Wow. And I thought that was weird, but I mean, we were vibing, the conversation was good. He was a military man too. He had been in the Air Force as well. And so he was a catch, but it's like, I had no attraction to him. I was just feeling like, okay, well, I have a baby and I'm divorced, don't have a good job, not going to college. So when he asked me to marry him, I'm like, okay, well, I don't have nothing to lose. Right. Nothing to lose. That's not the mindset you should be in when you accept a proposal. Yeah. Yeah. You should be excited. Like, yes, I'll marry you. No, that was not my. Yeah. attitude at all. But you live and you learn. Now, man, I'm on number 3.
Mm-hmm.
My person. This is the guy who, when I had my brain stroke, he found me. He the light sleeper. He found me and came to the other side of the bed when I didn't answer. Because when he woke up when he heard me gurgling.
Yeah.
And when I didn't answer, he came over, walked over to find me stroked out on the other side of the bed. Got me up, called the ambulance. Well, he called the ambulance, got me up, took me to the bathroom, and set me on the toilet. So it's like, that's my person. That's my person. And I can't, I know number 1, and I'm pretty sure number 2 wouldn't did it either.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to be, that's my person.
Right.
He saved me when nobody else, was around. He could have just took his baby and left the apartment.
Yeah.
And I would have died. But no, he was broken up because that was the love of my life. We call each other Real because my nickname is Ree and he go by Al.
Oh.
So together that makes Real. Yeah. Real love. Yep, that was the theme of our wedding. Yep. So we had an actual big church wedding. Yeah. Did everything right.
Oh, that's
Went
great.
through marital counseling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. People. I know when I first came into Christianity, they would look down on people who are divorced, but that's not.
God don't want you to be miserable.
Yeah, but listen, if you study, there's a reason God hates divorce, and it's not because 2 people failed in the relationship. If you study it out, when God says he hates divorce, it's the Hebrew culture type of divorce he was talking about, because in their culture, if a woman was unfaithful, then a man could put her away, divorce her, and she could not be remarried because then she would be an adulteress. But he could go off and he could remarry because he did nothing wrong. He hates divorce because it left the woman with nothing. It left her destitute. She couldn't remarry. Yep. She was frowned upon by her culture. That's why he hated divorce. You don't hate people because things didn't work out. You help them. You hate them for being human.
Yeah. But like I say, the first 2 marriages, those weren't my people.
Yeah. Yeah.
My 3rd one, that's my person. Yeah. I finally found my person.
There you go. We
met in art school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did.
That's good.
3rd time the charm.
There you go. Yeah. You just keep trying. You'll get there.
Mm-hmm. And we've been married. It's 19 years now. Next year will be 20.
Well, good for you.
Yeah. And we got married in March. Both of our birthdays are in March. We met at the Art Institute of Houston. Both of us are designers. Well, he's a web designer. And I'm a graphic designer. But it works.
That's great.
It works. And from the very beginning, I remember we stayed on the phone all night talking, and we talked till the sun came up. Yeah. And my kids had to go to school. I had to get them ready for school the next day. Yep. We had talked all night. Yeah. So, okay. You guys have been married for 39 years now.
Yes.
And you have 2 sons, 2 adult sons.
Yes. Yes.
And they have a combination of 4 children of their own. One has 3 and another has 1. Okay. Can you share what your grandparents' names are? Oh,
they call us G-Ma and G-Pa. It started out as Grandma and Grandpa, and it just kind of shortened. I said, okay, we'll just make this easier. We'll just be G-Ma and G-Pa. So that's who we are, G-Ma and G-Pa.
G-Ma and G-Pa.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay, and So, and my grandmother's name is Yaya.
Yeah.
And do you find yourself that you like being, actually, it's different for me because I'm still a parent. My daughter is 13 and a half, so it's kind of different. But do you find that you like, I'm pretty sure it's freeing being a grandmother compared to being a mother.
Absolutely. I love being grandma because I do not have to discipline. If they're bad, I'll just tell them, okay, I'm bringing you home. And that's usually sufficient for them to calm down.
Straighten up. Yep. Straighten up. Threaten them.
So, yeah, I love it. It's enjoyable. And you never have to be the bad guy that disciplines, even though, if you don't love your children, if you don't discipline them, you don't love them. You have to do that for your children. But it's always difficult, And, they just come over, we have a good time and send them home. I absolutely love being grandma.
Yeah, so do I. But like I say, it's different for me because I'm still a parent.
Yep, still
so
got
I'm still
that.
doing both roles at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I forgot to ask, did you guys have an actual wedding?
Yeah, we did. My husband was a children's pastor. And, he was like an assistant children's pastor at the time. And so the children's pastors and the children's choir, they did our wedding.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the church wedding.
Yeah, in church wedding. And
Wow.
it was a man and a woman, Richard and Barbara Rostrup. So they did what they needed to do so they could legally marry people. And they did our wedding. They did it together. She would say some things, he would say some things, and then because they had a television program at that time, so they had some talented kids there. And one of the girls sang a special song, and then a couple of, they had a little group thing, and they sang a song. It was really nice. It was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's nice. So, do you guys happen to know what your love languages are? Words of affirmation, physical touch, gifts, acts of service, or quality time?
I would have to say words. Words of affirmation. I have learned that he is more responsive to me if I just say thank you sometimes. And not point out the things I do. Just forget about the things you don't like. Just thank him and be grateful for the things you do like, and he responds to that well. And just the fact, one of the things that attracted him to marry me is that we can talk, and we can talk about anything, and he liked that. So I think in fact, I had asked him that question earlier today because I knew that you were going to ask me, and he said, well, yeah, that we can talk. That did draw me to you, is the fact that I could just talk to you about anything, and I would just talk to him. And he said, you marry your best friend. And so I was his best friend that he could talk to about anything. He made me his wife.
Yeah. Because that's what me and Alex were.
Yeah.
Best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went through all the stages from best friends to boyfriend to girlfriend. Then we got engaged. Then we got married. And then he became Zon's father 5 years later.
Yeah.
But okay. And this is about the your devastating condition.
Okay.
The pancreatitis.
Yes.
Okay.
That had
Would you care to share?
Yeah, I'll tell you about that. If I had listened to my husband, it probably never would have got that bad. But I was getting some pretty severe stomach pain to the point that I would lay on the floor and cry sometimes. And he would tell me, and he would come in and say, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I just have an upset stomach." And he said, "It's just acid indigestion." He said, I have acid indigestion. I never lay on the floor and cry. There's something wrong. But I didn't want to go, I didn't want surgery. I said, I'll just deal with it. I'll change the way I eat and, it'll take care of it. Well, no, I needed to go to a doctor, but I just waited until it was too long. I was coming home from church and I knew something was wrong. And my husband was working that weekend, so he really wasn't available. So I just called my son, who lived near us at the time, and I said, "You need to bring me to like an urgent care, and then I'm having some problems." And so he came pick me up. And then he didn't know where an urgent care was, and neither did I. So he called his wife, and she could hear me crying, in pain. And she said, "You bring her to the emergency room. You know where that is." So he brought me to the emergency room, and by the time I got there, I'm vomiting all over the place, and they're asking him, questions that he really didn't even know how to answer, but they thought I was having a heart attack at the time. And I told him, you call your dad, and tell him what's going on. And then I was like out. They were sticking things on my chest because they thought it was a heart attack, but it was pancreatitis, and it was a pretty bad form of pancreatitis. So
they thought it was a heart attack?
Initially, they thought I was having a heart attack, but it wasn't that. It was the pancreatitis that, and so they scheduled me for surgery because, they were going to take the gallbladder out and see what was going on with the pancreatitis, but they had to abort it because the doctor said, we just couldn't do it because everything we touched would start bleeding. So we had to abort it. And, I wasn't thrilled about that. I thought, we'll just get the little gallbladder taken out and he'll be okay. And I was in the hospital for about, I think, maybe 14 days. And I wasn't responding well to the medication. The doctor told my husband that pain from pancreatitis is right up there in, the top 3 of the worst kind of pain a person could have. And they had diagnosed me with delirium because I was just pretty much out of it.
Wow.
Yeah, bad. It was bad. I really don't even remember the first 2 or 3 days I was in the hospital. And, well, they told me later some of the stupid things I did. Like I tried to leave the hospital nude. I told him I was going to a wedding. I have to go to a wedding. And he's hanging on to me. Yeah,
whose wedding were you going to nude?
No.
From the hospital.
Yeah. So he dragged me back in the room and they came in and gave me something, I guess. So I quit trying to go to the hospital nude. And then my son came that weekend to give my husband a break because it's just not comfortable sleeping in a hospital room for a 6-foot man, on a little couch that feels like you're sitting on cardboard, And so he went to church. And that Sunday, he went to church before he was going to come back and let my son go home. And he went to the altar and he said, please pray for my wife because her mind is like it's gone. And so they prayed, him and one of the altar workers that were there. And then as he was walking out of the church, his phone rang and it was my son. And he said, "Dad, you got to come now. Mom's back." I snapped out of it. And he ran back in the church and told him the prayer was answered. And then he came to the hospital. Yeah.
Oh my God. Y'all had God on 911. On speed dial.
Yeah, that was a speed dial. But God promised us a sound mind. He never promised us our bodies would not break down because they will, And they turned me loose when they released me from that. They did everything they could do, but they couldn't do the operation. So they said, you have to go home until your pancreas is not inflamed, and then we can go back in and take out what we need to take out. So I went home for about a week, and then I'm in pain again. He brings me back, and this time they diagnosed me with necrotizing pancreatitis, which means that the pancreas, the duct that's supposed to go in, that the enzymes go into your stomach to digest food, couldn't get out. So it was digesting my pancreas.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. And pancreas, it doesn't grow back. When it's gone, it's gone. So they admitted me to the hospital again. They did everything that they could do, and they started doing endoscopies to remove the dead pancreas. And I think I had like 4 or 5 endoscopies where they would go in and to find the dead pancreas and take it out. And then around October, that all started in July 4th. I remember July 4th because that's when it started. And then around October, I was, I'm just living with pain. I kind of thought pain is just going to be my new normal because it just won't go away. And I didn't want to get addicted to drugs, so I was sparing on the pain pills as much as I could.
And how old were you when this was happening?
How old? This was in 2019. It was the year after I started the writers group. And I was out for 6 months, and the group survived until I came back. But yeah, so I was probably in my early 60s when that happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so anyhow, they're scraping out the dead pancreas. Finally, a doctor, every now and then they'd take a picture with that big thing tube. They see, well, it's not a tube anymore. It's a big circle, and they take pictures, see what's going on. And he showed me a picture of the first time it came in, there's this big black spot where my pancreas was. And it was pretty much all gone. They had removed, I guess, most of the dead material. And by that time, because
I didn't know you could live without a pancreas.
Well,
I know you can live without a gallbladder.
I have 20% left. I have 20% of my pancreas, they told me, left. You can't live without a pancreas. Well, you can, but you have to take enzymes to eat so your food will digest. And they gave me a bucket load of enzymes. But here's the thing is, that little 20% of pancreas, it was digesting food just fine. And when I would take the enzymes, I didn't like it. It was, I wouldn't even have a normal bowel movement when I took the enzymes. Wow. But if I just left it alone and ate, then I would have normal bowel movements. So I don't use the enzymes, and my little 20% of pancreas is doing its job. And so in October, the one of the many doctors I had so many, I don't even remember all their names. He decided, go talk to the surgeon. I think you're ready. Well, the surgeon didn't want to do it. He didn't think I was ready. By this time, I'm in a wheelchair because I can't hardly eat anything. I think I was living off of turkey meat and potatoes. Baked potatoes was about all I could get down without tremendously upsetting my stomach. So I was losing a lot of weight. I was in a wheelchair. I was very weak. And, I could walk, but if I fell down, I couldn't get up. So the doctor said, I finally got strong enough, that I was able to go there, and I walked part of the way. And I said, well, I walked part of the way. We got the wheelchair, but, I was doing some walking. And he said, well, I really don't think you're ready yet. I don't think you're strong enough yet. And, I got so upset. And I said, well, you told me I could still have a gallbladder attack because it was still in there. And I could end up back at square one if I have another gallbladder attack and lose even more pancreas. And so he relented. And he said, okay, I'll do it. And he was right, because that surgery should have taken 30 minutes. It took him 3 hours. He said it was messy and it was difficult, but he got that gallbladder out and most of the dead pancreases. I think I had to go back a few more times for the dead pancreas. And when that was gone, it was like, oh, I felt so good. All those rotten organs were out of me, and I felt so much better. But I was still in a wheelchair, getting around in a wheelchair. And my husband told me one day, he said, okay, you can walk from the bed to the living room to watch TV, right? And I said, well, yeah, I can do that. And as long as I don't fall, I'm fine, because my mother was living with us at the time, but she wouldn't have been able to pick me up. And so I just started, I put my hand on the wall and I would walk as far as I could walk every day. And I told myself, I said, okay, when I can walk for 20 minutes, at least 20 minutes, then I'm going to go back to the gym and I'm going to try and up this, And by the end of the year, I was walking 20 minutes. I mean, I would still use the wheelchair sometimes if we went someplace where I had to walk a long time. But I was strong enough to go into the gym, and my husband hired a fitness trainer to help me because I was floundering. I was, I'd do the water exercises because they were easy. I'd walk a little bit, but I was just like floundering, So he hired her. Her name is Elisa Abramson. She's a fitness trainer at Oshner in Elmwood. And she was my age. We were the same age. And what she did was just inspire me. She would lead me in some exercises that I could handle. And then she would encourage me. She would say things like, I'm going to be at the pool. You want to come swim laps with me? And, or I'm doing a spin class. You want to come do it? She would encourage me. She wouldn't tell me. She would invite me. And so I'm thinking, this woman's the same age. If she can do that, I can do that.
So it was a competition, a little silent competition.
Yeah.
So she pushed the button on your hidden competitive spirit. She's like, if she can do that, I can do it.
Yep, I can do it too. But she was also a triathlete. So the first thing she did is she asked me, I'm going to go run a 5K. You want to come with me? And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking if you can do it, I can do it.
Exactly. If you can do it, I definitely can do it.
Now, she wasn't really running the 5K, which is 3 miles. She was running the 10K, which is 6. I started, the 5K people started first. 15 minutes later, the people running 6 miles started their run. It took me an hour to do my little 3 miles. It took her an hour and 10 minutes to do 6 miles. She crossed that finish line 10 minutes after I did. After I did.
You did.
10 minutes after I did. And she ran 6 miles and I ran 3. She's a remarkable woman. She's strong, very strong.
Wait. But she was running the other race.
She started late. 3K. Yes. And she started 15 minutes after I left for my race and crossed the finish line almost the same time I did, running 6.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And, she just inspired me. So, I kept adding things and I'm going to get stronger and I'm going to do better. And then one day she was talking about a triathlon she's going to. And I said, I think I could do that. So she didn't.
Teacher got you interested.
Yeah, she didn't discourage me. She just always encouraged, and I did. I started training when I was 65, and I trained for a whole year. And then I was 64 and trained for a whole year, because in a triathlon, your age is the age you are on the last day of the month. So my first triathlon, I was 65, but my triathlon age was 66. And I took second place in that one.
Wow.
Well, don't say wow yet. There were only 2 people in my age group, which is I was only competing against my age group, and I was the second person, so I was guaranteed second place.
Wow. No, I wasn't saying wow, because hey, it's amazing that you're your age and able to run. Do you know that's not common?
Well, I'm in a group called the Still Magnolias, and everybody in that group, well, not everybody, they have a few youngers now, but the majority of people in that group are 40 years old and up. They had 5 people in their 70s that did a triathlon the year I did that one. In their 70s.
Wow.
And that was their first triathlon. Yeah. And that was their first triathlon. There are a lot of older people who do, they still out there doing what they can to keep fit and healthy.
Yeah. Because that's the key. Keep moving.
Yeah. So the next triathlon I did, I placed 3rd. Same scenario. I was there with 3 people in my age group and I took 3rd. Because, it was mine either way. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not really any good at this. And I'm not really winning anything. I'm winning by default. If I ever win, if I ever win when there's more than 2 or 3 people and I'm the last person, then maybe I've accomplished something. So I did another triathlon in July. And there were 5 people in my age group. And they always give you the stats. You can look up the stats ever online of how much time you spent doing each thing. Now, I came 2nd out of 5 because of a sock. What they do is the time, they will time your swim, they will time your transition, they will time your bike, time your transition, and time your run. And the transition times are included. So the lady who placed first place, I beat her by 40 seconds in the swim. But then I beat her by 5 minutes on the bike. She beat me by 3 minutes on the run, but that still gave me a 2-minute advantage, which I lost because in transition, I had put on one shoe and I had heard you put your helmet on first. So I reached up to put my helmet on, and then I looked back down and I had lost my sock. And I spent more.
Wow.
I lost first place. I could not find my sock. I'm looking all over. And so I finally just got on the bike. I had spare socks. I put on 2 different socks and off I went, and I came back and took my helmet off, and that stupid sock was in my helmet on the top of my head the whole time.
It was with you the whole time.
On my head, yes.
Oh, my God.
In my helmet. And I'm like, I lost first place by a sock.
That was with you all the time.
Yes.
On your head.
Yes, it was.
Oh, my goodness.
How it got on my head and under my helmet, I cannot explain.
Oh, my God.
But I did. That was a true win. Okay. There were 5 people in that age group, and I beat her in the swim, bike, run. I lost it in the transition, or I would have had first place.
Wow.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, stupid sock.
Yeah, that's hilarious. The sock was inside your helmet on your head.
Yes, it was. That's why I couldn't find it.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I imagine so. It was in the helmet on top of your head.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy. So how many triathlons have you competed in altogether?
I did 4 this year, and I did 2 last year. So I'd say 6. And I'm doing, I haven't done the last 2. I'm doing a triathlon this coming Saturday in Mississippi. And then the following Saturday, I'm doing a triathlon in Gulf Shores, Mississippi, Gulf Shores, Alabama. And that'll probably be the last one.
Is that included in the 4?
Yeah, those were included in the 4 because I did 2 and then I have 2 more. So 4, so total 6. Since I started doing them, I've done a total of 6. Yeah.
So obviously you like them.
Well, yeah, I like them because you really, you don't know who's ahead of you. You just have to do your best because you wear a timer on your leg, and when you enter areas and exit areas, it keeps the time. So, I mean, you don't know who's at the head of the pack. So there's really nobody to run up and beat because you don't know what people's times are. And it takes some of that, sometimes in sports, people elbowing each other out of the way and things like that. Well, you're really not going to get that, maybe at the very end of a run, but you still don't know how that person did in the other disciplines. So, you just get in it and you do your best. And I'm really just competing against myself to better the times that I did last time. And I kind of like it that way. Yeah. And then
a lot more people should be against themselves, not compete against other people.
Oh, yeah. And I tell you, these ladies, it's not a Christian group. They have Christians in the group. I'm one. But they are all of them are very encouraging. They don't care how fat and slow you run. They will tell you, you've got this, girl. Go. Good for you. They are very, very encouraging. And I like that too. So I like it for that reason. It's a great group.
That's good. Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, so what's your favorite hobbies or pastimes?
Well, what I do in my spare time now is train for triathlons. And reading, I like to read. I've always liked to read,
I love reading.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Readers are leaders. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's your favorite new read now?
I'm reading. I've got a book. I'm about to start it, and I've looked at the first couple of chapters, and it's called "The Problem with Jesus," and the subtitle is "Before You Walk Away." And she deals with a very interesting aspect that. Well, in the first chapter, she talks about how when Jesus was born, all these little babies were slaughtered. Now, Jesus didn't do that. Evil people did it. But, it's like, well, he's here and then this terrible thing happens. And so she's trying to address that. And I thought it was really, I haven't really got real deep into it yet, but I think it's a really interesting point of view.
Who was it by? Who's the author?
Hastings. I can't think of her name. In fact, we interviewed her a few weeks ago. I'm pretty sure the last name is Hastings, and it's called The Trouble with Jesus Before You Walk Away.
The Trouble or The Problem with Jesus?
The Trouble, I think. Pretty sure is The Trouble with Jesus.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I got that right. I hope I did.
Because I wrote it down as The Problem with Jesus.
I'm pretty sure it's The Trouble.
Mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll double check that and text it to you later.
Okay. All right. What do you do to further educate yourself in addition to reading? Do you listen to podcasts, attending church, Bible studies, seminars, workshops?
Well, I do go to occasional writing workshops, though I will say this, that at one point it became the same information coming from different faces. And so I've kind of because it was just a repetition of things I already knew, Yeah. But I still go to them on occasion, and I do a lot of on my own studying. I do grammar. I have a program called Grammar Planet, and I try to study. In fact, the program recommends 15 minutes a day. Just something small, and you can retain it better that way. And I try to do that daily. Is
that an app like on your phone?
It's it's a program. Yeah, well, I use it on my computer, and what it does is it will give you a sheet you can print that explains some aspect of grammar, like nouns and pronouns, and then they will have these exercises that you go through, and you will give the answers, and then it'll tell you. Then you'll click, and it'll tell you if you were right or wrong. So it's a good way to grasp the concepts. And I don't always do that daily, but I try to. And if I go too long, I'll get an email that says, "We missed you." And I'm like, I need to get back on this. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah. Sometimes I just get busy with too many things,
Exactly. Life.
Oh, yes.
Yep. Life be lifing.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your best year of life? What do you believe was your best year of life?
Wow. That's a good question. And I was thinking about that earlier. Probably when I got saved was my best year. Because it's so, it just the experience I had with the living God. And I really don't think it made me anything special. Just nobody else was there. So God was there for me. And that's not something you can forget. You can't give me arguments, theological arguments, can't take that from me because I experienced it. It's more than just words.
It's real.
Yeah.
It really happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what year that was?
1973.
Wow.
Yep. And
I
it's
was
still.
I want to say I was in 3rd grade in 73.
Oh, wow. I'm old.
No, I'm just thinking back. It's like I was born in 68, okay? So okay. I was... You're not old. I'm just...
No, I don't. I tell you, I don't feel old. Honestly, I still feel like I'm in my 20s.
And running triathlons, that's not... Everybody can't do that. That's not something... That's something that you should have a shirt made to say, I'm 67 and I run I'm in my 60s and I run triathlons.
Yeah.
Because that is unbelievable. And people will be like, I saw an old lady today and she had on this shirt that said she was 67 and she run triathlons. I mean, because that's like, wow, amazing to me. Because like I say, that's not something everybody doesn't know somebody who runs triathlons. Because I told you yesterday when we were talking.
Yeah.
My friend's husband runs triathlons, but he's in great shape. He looks like he runs triathlons. Like yes. But for you to say I mean, no shame to you, but it's like you run triathlon.
Yeah.
My goodness.
I know one of the first triathlons I did, they write your age on your calf because you have to wear a number, and then this one puts your age. They will write it on the calf, and so I was standing in line. Everybody's going through the line, getting their age on their calf, and she asked me, what will your age be on the last day of the year? And I said 66, and I heard behind me, "That's amazing."
It is. I mean, how many 66-year-olds do you know is running triathlon?
Yeah.
You just don't run it. That's your 1 in a million. 1 in a million.
Well, no, they got some. My fitness trainer does them, and she does longer ones than I do.
Still, y'all are rare. That's a rare breed. Everybody can't. I can't. Well, I've never desired to, but I couldn't. I've never been athletic, but even still, that's just not on my agenda at all.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, what was the worst part? The worst
year was 1975 when I heard God tell me what to do with my life, and I just blew it. That was the worst year of my life, and I wanted to obey Him, but I just, you know what? When God tells you something, it's not, it's that and it's something else, because Jesus didn't want to do it either. in the garden.
but
He
he
said,
did it.
if you can take this away from me. And and God sent angels to strengthen him. So when you do God's will, you know, if I had had a better attitude, and I can remember God dealing with me, trying to give me the strength, and I wouldn't yield to him because I was so angry, you know. So yeah, that was the worst. It took me a very, very long time to get over that. And yeah, I went into a very deep depression after that. That was the absolute worst year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, what self-care habits do you have to take care of your mental health?
I stopped watching the news.
Yeah, I hear you. Me too. That's depressing.
Yes,
it's
it
like
is.
They'll have you scared to come out of your house.
Yeah, they will. They will. Ooh. So I just like, you know, I don't know who's telling the truth here. And exactly. I still watch some of the local news, but the national news, no, I don't watch national news because there's just no way to tell. Any news. Yeah. So I just stopped.
My news off of life songs.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, would you like to tell us a little about Mix 106?
Well, Christian Mix.
How did that?
How that happened? Well, Jennifer. Yeah, Jennifer Cotney. She had opened the door. She said they had gotten pretty full with people, but they were leaving the door open for Southern Christian writers because our group and Ingrid, who is the secretary of our group, had been a great help to Jennifer, and our group had really blessed her. So she said she was leaving the door open for us to, if we wanted to have a 1 minute or up to 5 minute thing, that we could have that. And a number of the people in the group did it. And so I thought about it and I said, well, I really don't want a radio program. That's a lot of work. And so I asked her, well, can I just do like 5-minute interviews? That way, I can help the authors get get the word out about their books. I'll just interview the authors in the group. And whenever I send them to you, y'all can just drop them in. And she said, oh yeah, no problem. You got an interview, send it. We'll just drop it in. And I thought, okay, that's fine. That'll be on my schedule when I have time to do it, whatever. And they liked him so much that they gave me pretty much prime time. It airs at 5 o'clock on the East Coast, and you would hear it here at 4 o'clock, which is like drive time when people are listening to their radios. And they they didn't want them just once in a while. They wanted it once a week. So now I'm, but you know what? I haven't had any problem finding almost 52 people a year to interview. And, you know, when God wants you to do something, he provides. I was worried about getting enough people to finish out this year, and now I'm ahead. You know, we're going to be interviewing people next month, and that'll be for 2025 because I think I've got enough to finish the year now. So I just need to trust God. Nice. Yep. If God wants me to do this, yep. Yeah.
He'll provide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, okay, we towards the end now.
Okay.
And I have where I'm going to ask you your realities from the past where you just knew that God had been involved because your situation changed. Number 1, something from the past 3 years of your life.
Well, Well, in the past 3 years, not really. My life is pretty much leveled out. I would say the start of the writers group, but that was more than 3 years ago that we started that. I knew God was involved, and it did change what I was doing in more ways than I could imagine. In that it became more than just a group, but we also have our own radio broadcast now.
Well, we can put there. It can be more than 3 years.
Okay. Well, I would say that then the woman who was the prophet that told me God had a place for me and it would open soon, and that happened, exactly happened, just like she said.
Wow. Okay. So Southern Christian Writer Group came to pass just as prophet says.
Yeah, just as the prophecy was spoken to me.
Oh, okay. Now, a memory from something from your young adult or teen years where you knew God had been involved because your situation changed.
Well, that would be my salvation at 15, because that was a pretty intense experience with God. I mean, eventually I made it into the church. I'm not saying the church is not necessary, but we are the church, not the building so for as much. But we do need a place to gather. Yeah. And his presence was just he comforted me, and it's not something I could ever forget or ever deny.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and another memory, or perhaps something that you were told about your younger self when you were a child, toddler, or infant, where God had been involved because the situation changed.
You know what happened? You know how I told you earlier I had fallen into a deep depression. I was so depressed I didn't even know I was depressed. I went to a church.
Now that's depressed.
Yeah, I didn't even know I was depressed. You know when I figured out I was depressed? I would sit in my closet and cry. After my husband and the kids were gone, I was still struggling with it, and I wasn't telling anybody about it. But when they left, I would just sit in my closet in the dark and cry because I just didn't know what else to do. And one day I was sitting in there crying. I was banging my head on the wall, and I stopped and I said, "This isn't normal. There's something wrong with me." And when I acknowledged that, I went to a service and had another unusual experience. A pastor preached a message about how the devil will set you up for failure. Because I was very discouraged about the fact that God wanted me to do something and I didn't do it. And now it was like water under the bridge and felt like I'd ruined my life and it was all my fault. But he preached a message that sent me into such a deep, I've never experienced anything like that, a deep thought. And I began to connect the dots. When I was 10 years old, my dad he basically tried to molest me. We were at a drive-in theater and he's telling me to, lift your shirt up, so I can feel your chest. And I didn't even have breast. I was flat chested. I mean, and what I did instead of obeying him, I held on to my shirt tight and I refused to yield to him. That memory came back while I'm listening to this man preach this message, how God will set you up to fail. And then you fast forward to 1975, and my Heavenly Father is telling me to do something. And I saw it as I'm still that little girl. I couldn't yield to him because I'm still that little girl in me is still hanging on to her shirt because of what her daddy did, her flesh daddy. And that's why I couldn't yield. That's why I couldn't yield. It wasn't my fault. I was set up to fail. So you might wonder, well, why would God even let that happen? Because we have more arrogance than we think we do. And sometimes he has to let things happen. No, I'm talking about in 1975. Okay, after I became a Christian. And, and there's still, when we get saved, there's still arrogance in us that needs to be broken. And I really believe God let that happen so that it would break my arrogance. Because if I wasn't arrogant, why wasn't I was at what time? When my father tried to molest me, or when I had to be. We were living in Germany, so 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there, somewhere between 7 and 10. Now, he was so drunk.
Wow. So, and was it just you and him at the theater?
Well, it was a drive-in theater. We were in a car. Remember the drive?
Yeah, but still.
Yeah. Well, he had come home drunk.
Drive-in theaters.
Yeah. he had come home drunk and he said, let's go see a movie. And I'm like, oh, yay. And it was just this army movie. And he was drunk as could be. And that's when he tried.
Wow.
He didn't, but he tried. And then I come, to 1975. This had to have been in the 60s when that happened. And I failed and I blamed myself and I hated myself and I was so depressed, but I was set up to fail. And I think God let that happen because, if I didn't have arrogance, I wouldn't have got so angry with God.
Yeah.
Where there's anger, there's arrogance. And sometimes he has to let you fail to open your eyes to who you really are. I didn't really repent for sin until 20 years into my Christian walk, and I'm teaching Sunday school. When I met God, it was an explosion of joy. It was Daddy and his child, and he's patting her on the butt. She's just a little baby, and we got to take care of her. But then, I grew up to be, I had arrogance I wasn't even aware of. And I know when I was teaching a Sunday school class, and I was writing my own lessons, and I had taught how in the wilderness, they were just about to cross over into the promised land. And they came back and said, oh, there's big giants over there. After all God did to Egypt, like God couldn't handle a giant. And they're all sitting in their tents and they're weeping and they're crying. God doesn't love us. Now, I just taught that message. And there was problems between me and the pastor where I was teaching because there was a little bit of jealousy, and there's an interesting story behind that I won't go into. But I got in my car and we were driving back. I just taught that message, and we were at the top of the Huey Long Bridge, and I remember the thought struck me. I'm like, I said to my husband, God doesn't love me. And that's when I thought, I just taught this lesson and I'm doing what Israel's doing. That's when I started repenting for my sin.
Wow.
20 years later, when I actually saw my sin, was that bucket load of arrogance that I would have the audacity to get mad at God or even think that he would tell me to do something and not provide everything I needed to do it. I believed the worst of God. And that's what Adam and Eve did in the Garden of Eden. They ate of that tree. They had to believe that God lied to them to eat of that tree because he told them you're going to die. So they believed.
They did die, not physically.
Well, no, they did both. Because they did eventually 1,000 years later, they're dead. And you know what? I wonder how.
But people don't even live as years. And honestly, I wouldn't want to live to be 1,000 years. Can you? But it was different then. At 1,000 years, you probably look like you was maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 500 years old. People be like, oh, yeah, how old are you? 500? Oh my God.
You got a point there, lady.
It's like people we age different now. It's a completely different time. So let's say I wouldn't want to live that long.
Yeah, not in this age. I wouldn't. What's going on in this world? No.
No. It's like sometimes because that's why I don't listen to the news no more. Because I would be so upset. It's like they keep me worried. And my husband was like, Reed, you need to stop watching the news.
Absolutely.
Stop. And even some stuff that I look at online, he like, stop looking at that stuff. Just don't do it. I'm like, because it gets me paranoid. And I'm just like, oh my God, did you see or did you hear? Or I heard today or I saw. And it's like, so to keep my sanity, I don't watch any news, and then I do very little watching news on the internet and the TV. But Lord have mercy, help us. Okay, and one more in closing.
Okay,
what does what does being refined by the fires mean to you? And would you say that you've been refined by the fires?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have suffered child abuse and attempted sexual abuse and drug abuse and verbal abuse from my parents. And I mean, my life didn't really get what I would say happy until I met my husband. And he's always been very, very good to me. But yeah, I think the experiences that I went through that were fire to refine me was that King Saul heart I had in me. I was Saul and my husband was Samuel. And yeah, God used him to mellow me out in a lot of ways.
Wow. That's wonderful. That's how I feel with my husband because he's a soft-spoken man. He's a gentle giant.
Yeah.
And he's just what I needed. Like, because when we first met, I wasn't attracted. As a matter of fact, I was still married to my second husband.
Yeah.
And we were just friends and classmates. But after we started talking and hanging out after me and my husband had separated and was in the process of divorce, we started talking and had got more, started to get to know each other a little more and start hanging around each other. And I realized he was what I had needed in my life all along.
Yeah.
He was the something that I was missing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's my person. Yeah. We were destined to be together. Because like I say, when I started going to art, because I've always been artistic. Like I said in the meeting, I used to write on my dad's paychecks and my mom would just freak out because it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? I need to cash that. That's your daddy's paycheck. I didn't know. I just knew it was some paper.
Yeah.
And I needed something to write or, draw on. And she'd freak out because it's like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, but I was just looking for paper.
Yeah.
And so I've always had that in me. I've always been artistic, creative, and she had told me when I was a kid, because I would say I want to be an artist. I'm thinking a French artist. I want to wear a beret.
Yeah.
I want to, have the whole artistic experience. And she's like, artists don't make no money. And that just crushed me.
Yeah.
So I was like, you have to really choose your words carefully.
Yeah.
With your children, because I like to think that I've been a better parent to my older 3 children and my daughter now.
Yeah.
I want to be a better mom than my mom was to me. And I believe that I've been that to them.
Yeah. Yep, that was my goal too, to be a better mom.
Yeah. Than what you had.
Yeah.
That should be everybody's goal.
Yeah.
I don't care how good your mama is, try to beat her. That should be a silent competition. You always try to do better than what she did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but it's been a pleasure.
Okay.
Interviewing you, lady.
Well, thank you.
And thanks so much for agreeing at the last minute, because I contacted me and Teena was talking, me and Jennifer was talking yesterday, and she had suggested you, and I was like, I don't know her that well, but after me and you talked, she texted you first and asked you, and then I followed up and I texted you, and when I called you after me and her finished talking, and it was like we were old friends, like you felt very familiar.
Good.
You had a very familiar spirit, and I felt like I was comfortable, that I felt like you was a godsend.
Okay, good.
That you possibly were who I was supposed to interview anyway.
Maybe so.
So thank you.
Well, thank you for asking me. I've enjoyed it.
That's wonderful. And thank you so much to my audience for tuning in today. You could have been doing anything else, but I'm extremely grateful that you chose to be here with us. It'd be appreciated if you'd also subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified when I upload new videos. Like, comment, and even share this video with someone who could stand to be in the know, or AKA edutained, to get more knowledge, to get the knowledge they need for their personal life journey. May you and yours stay blessed always. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for yet another successful podcast interview. We pray that it helps someone in this vast world who runs across my channel recognize themselves in something they hear in this video or another of my videos that they can relate to before you return and it's too late. May they gain all the things they need to help them live their lives better than they already have been. We pray their ears be open and attuned to what they need to get as it brings to mind issues or someone else they know have been going through. Give them the desire to share this with others who need to learn this knowledge. Keep them near you, O Lord, and continue to take care of them. Allow them to see you at work in their lives, so without a doubt, they'll be able to testify to others that you did it for them. These are our prayers through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.